exclusive episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to this special live edition of STS on a Sunday evening, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And tonight we bring to you like I said, a special show and a special man, Tim Jansen. He's been doing all of our trial coverage up to this point, a phenomenal job, live streaming coverage. We're going to continue. I will be by Tim's side tomorrow morning, promptly 8:40 a.m. Eastern time, ahead of what is expected to be closing arguments in the Charlie Adelson trial. And then below Tim, none other than Kool lady. She is a victim's advocate. Her own sister was murdered. She's had a difficult go at it, but has turned her life around. And she is one of the coolest people I know. So she gave herself a fitting name. Got to meet her and Tim, obviously, both in person in Tallahassee. And last but not least, you nodded right on cue. Carm, thank you for joining us this Sunday night.
It's my pleasure.
You look beautiful.
Thank you.
You look stunning.
Thank you.
So, without further ado, and this was a late call here, and shout out to the COE. We're going to hear some wiretaps that were not admitted into evidence, and they really go to Charlie's character. They show you the type of person he is, and I will let you judge. We have 4 different wiretaps. We're going to listen to them together. Before we get there, there is a special Patreon and YouTube member event at 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight. 1 hour and 58 minutes away. You get to ask Carm anything and me anything. It's basically an open forum. Carm, are you nervous knowing that people can ask you literally anything?
Sorry, I'm not nervous.
You're not at all?
No.
You can handle whatever comes your way?
Whatever.
Okay, whatever comes.
I may sometimes do the 5th.
Take the 5th?
Take the 5th.
It is your constitutional right. You want Tim Jansen there to act as your counsel?
I would love him to act anytime I need counsel. I will pick him.
You will ask Tim Jansen.
Anytime, Carm. I'm your counsel.
Thank you.
Kool lady, I saw your video. You're out on a park bench. What kind of tribute did you establish today? Tell us about this bench and what you are doing.
Well, I filmed on the bench. There is a memorial bench at a park that Dan used to walk to with his kids at a playground at the park near their home. And Karen Cyphers told me about it when I told her about this project and was looking for a special place to film. And she suggested that. It was just perfect. It was very emotional to be there. The project is this. My birthday's tomorrow. So I usually
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Go ahead.
I'm turning 64 tomorrow, if you could believe that. So
you look fantastic.
Baby.
Anyway, so I tend to do something like acts of kindness on my birthday or giving projects on my birthday. I've been doing that for a few years now. So I thought, well, what should I do this time? Because I'm down here at the trial, right? So I had some extra signed copies of Ruth Markel's book. So I thought I'm going to incorporate those into some sort of giving project. And what I came up with, because people may not know, when you are dealing with the legal system now for 33 years for me and my sister's homicide, that it starts to become a situation where people know more about the murderers than they do the victim. In fact, some cases, the victim's name just isn't even mentioned anymore. And this has been a long haul for the Markels, and there's a lot of emphasis on that A word, that family. And I just felt like I wanted to bring Dan Markel back into view. So I created this project where today I ask people to go out and do random act of kindness or get some sort of giving in the name of Dan Markel and to speak his name into the world or write it down as part of the project. Like, it makes specifically in his honor. And people literally from all over the world are doing projects today and getting back with me. There's well over 100 already. I did my own today. I was, I'll just tell you real quickly what that was, but that through people that I'm meeting here, Joel, there's like all these really cool people that you're meeting at the trial and related to the trial. I was put together with the woman who was teaching the exercise class at Premier Fitness the day that Dan was killed. So truly one of the last people to see him alive. And not that I've met her, I just know who she is. And so I thought, this is one of the many people who has been affected by this, but like nobody knows about, and she's been dealing with it in her own way. And so I bought her a gift and I dropped it off at Premier Fitness today and wrote a card just about like, I acknowledge you and what you've gone through. And I can only imagine he was a regular at her class, and she truly was one of the last people to see him alive. And like, that has to be heavy. So that's what's happening today. And tomorrow there'll be on my channel a thread where people can share their random act of kindness. I was with the family today, and as the comments were coming in, I was reading to them in person what people were doing literally all over the world. And so tomorrow there'll be a thread where people can share everything that they've done, and then the Markells can tap into it anytime they want and see what people have done in Dan's name.
Wow, that's amazing. By the way, being in Tallahassee was incredible. An amazing group of people who have come together to support the Markells. God, I had a lot of time to talk to Phil Markel and Shelly Markel, both amazing people. Ruth, you tend to hear more about Ruth, and Phil is a quiet guy, but a very smart, sweet man, and told him that we are all here to help support him. Andy School coming to us from Detroit. That bench video made me cry. Katie Kool Lady's video as I listened while driving. Guilty verdict coming, I promise. Giovanna DeStefano says, Katie Kool Lady, I saw your video, so emotional. Hi, Carm. So happy to see you. Carm, special shout out to Valerie. Tell people who Valerie is and what she told you.
Valerie is the lady who is the concierge in the building where I live. And because I gave Joel my car to go to Tallahassee, I needed to get an Uber. And while I was waiting for the Uber, she told me, she hugged me and she said, you will never believe it. I never miss one about the Markel case. I haven't missed anything. As a matter of fact, I took a day off from work to watch this
and
trial.
What did you say? That she said it's going to be a what verdict?
And she says he's guilty. And this lady is very smart. So Valerie said to me, she didn't know I would talk about it, especially not on the air. She'll probably kill me when I get back.
Michelle Pretorius coming to us from South Africa. Tim and Carm on one show. Great. Hi, everyone. Hello to you. And Katie Kool Lady is special. What is this question? Look at this. Bringing up my history. Joel, state tennis champion of what state exactly? That would be the state of New Jersey. 3-time, by the way, not just single time, 3-time, and county champ.
And who is bragging?
Yeah, going back to the mid-1980s here. I'm still living 35 years ago. So, Tim,
yes.
Tomorrow, according to schedule,
right,
we should hear closing arguments. Walk us through the procedure. What's going to happen when Judge Everett gavels the court back into session in the morning?
He'll give them some preliminary instructions about the closing arguments, and then he'll turn it over to the state. Now, the state gets the first part and the last part of closing. Sometimes judges allow them to split it up, meaning Sarah could do the first part and then Georgia could do the rebuttal. I think that would be a great idea if that is done, because I think Sarah could walk through everything like she did in the opening. She's very low key. She's pretty good with the facts. And then the rebuttal is where you say your best and your most important stuff, because the defense doesn't get to respond. And it's a rebuttal to their argument. So I'm pretty sure she's got a pretty good rebuttal. That is so important. It didn't used to be that way, I will tell you. The law used to be that if you put any evidence in the case other than your defendant, then the state got what we called the sandwich. And many years ago, when the legislature was changing that law, I went there to not let it happen as a defense lawyer. So I was arguing against Willie Meggs. So I went up there and they said, who do you represent? And I said, the citizens of Tallahassee. So I got up and made my argument.
And how did that go over, Tim?
Well, it went over great, but the guy says, I said, why do they keep saying the government supports this? Why do they keep saying that? And he came back and told me, Yeah, because every Republican's going to vote against you. Every Democrat's going to vote for you. And you're going to lose by one. And Willie got up and said, ladies and gentlemen, the very reason why we don't want this is because we want to be able to talk after Mr. Jansen in closing. And I lost 5-4. It was an experience. My first time going before the legislature.
Wow.
I'm not a political person, but it was an experience.
That's an interesting story. Don Hagerman, a guilty verdict will be Katie Kool-Aid's birthday present. Happy early birthday. Becky Ireland, glad you made it home safely. I'm praying that the prosecutor does a better job on closing arguments. I so want to see justice for Dan and his family. Katie, how are you feeling the night before the big day? Someone said they hate Mondays, as do I, and have never waited more anxiously for Monday. How are you feeling tonight?
I feel good. I feel confident. I talked to Carl Steinbeck yesterday for an hour, and I call him. And he's very confident in a quick guilty verdict, and I'm right there with him.
Good. So, Tim,
yeah,
tell us what is Georgia doing this weekend? What is Rashbam doing this weekend? How do they set themselves up? How much of this is already done? What's their strategy for each side going into tomorrow?
Well, Rashbam's already done, right? His story, this book or this fable that you want to call it, has been pre-rehearsed. It's been set. He knows every line. He's got his script, so he's going to follow through with his script. He may have to answer to Wendy, depending on what happens in the first part of the state's closing, because he didn't anticipate Wendy coming in here and testifying that she just heard it. Georgia's she made her point. She's got her big points. She's going to stick with the law, and she's going to say and show how ridiculous his statements were. How every answer he had an answer for. And he said extortion, she said 125 times, because those were speaking points. It's more like a politician. He was regurgitating those speaking points. Now, he was testifying for 8 hours on direct? He never once says, I don't recall, I don't remember. And he was given dates and times, events 9 years earlier. And then Georgia got up and asked him about a call, and he gave the exact date. He's got it memorized. And so she realized quite quickly she wasn't going to get him to buckle. So she made her points, she got out, and she's going to put it all together in closing.
Shannon McCarthy with a super sticker for Katie Kool-Aid, a happy birthday sticker. Thank you. Thank you for this. Plant Piggies, hi. Thanks for all your hard work. It's been quite a bit of work. Again, huge shout out to COE behind the scenes who put these wiretaps together that we're going to listen to in a few minutes. Space Coast on the West Coast. And, of course, Steve Cohen, Meave Moen, doing the job that he always does behind the scenes. Shout out to Steve Cohen. We drove about 15 hours together, he and I. Bearded Reactions, $9.99 super sticker here. I was on the fence until he took the stand. He is guilty. I think he paid them to unalive Dan. Then they ran out of money, so they extorted him. Interesting. I don't know that I agree with that, but interesting. Carm, Tim Jansen once famously said that the reason Wendy Adelson wore the same dress the first and second trial,
I know that,
because she's
it's
an actor, it's a costume.
In a play.
To Tim's point that he used the word extortion, I think it was 121 times, and he knew specific dates. You don't ever cut off the interviewer. Let me finish the question. That means you're not really listening, Carm.
I'm listening, and I know, unfortunately, because I know you for a while, I know where you're going.
Go ahead and answer, Carm.
Well, I think the interesting part is that you all say it's like a play, that it's a rehearsed play, but good actors make you forget while you are listening to them that it's a play and you really think it's real life. And I think that this guy is dangerously good, Charlie's. And for that reason, I am very paranoid, suspicious person, but at times he sounded so good that I could even go with his reasoning. I mean, I know the underlying story is completely baloney, and I'm aware of that. But what I'm saying that he has certain skills that the devil has. but he has them very developed.
Yes, he does. Go ahead, Katie.
Can I speak to that? So, Carm, I wish I could go back and remember the exact quote, but this might make you and people feel better about that, because there was a quote, I believe Sarah said in the opening, that something like, you're not making a decision about Charlie Adelson, the person. You're making a decision about the facts of what he did. And I hope they separate that again in the closing. So it really does like guide them to remove the persona, like you said, the actor. So I think that's exactly why people got very nervous with that cross, exactly what you're describing. It's like this hypnotic effect of him that takes you out, and it's a clown show. I mean, when you step back, but I think them giving the permission to get him out of the equation and what he did only to deliberate on is going to be taking him to the guilty.
And Carm, you are a licensed therapist by trade. What is the hallmark of a pathological liar?
Well, first of all, if to lie well, you have to believe yourself. At that moment, you have to believe the lie yourself. And I think that he did not get to that level of that he believed himself. All along, I think he knew he was BSing, but he BSed in an excellent fashion, like a superior fashion. And it's very, very scary because he memorized even the page on which certain
Tim, is that the kind of thing that jurors are going to notice, that he knew a page number, that he knew an exact date from 9 years ago? Because it doesn't compute.
Yeah, a regular person might not know what they had for lunch 3 days earlier, but this guy could tell you the date, time, and page on the transcript. Carm's right. He mentioned the date and the page on the transcript. He's a very, very smart guy. He's been sitting. Go ahead.
I broke the rule of interrupting. But he says in that thing, he says, oh, it was only a 2.5 minute long phone call. Yeah, so he knows exactly the length of he may have photographic memory too.
He doesn't strike me as a type.
Carm, he barely got into dental school, barely got out of dental school. I don't think he's got a photogenic memory. I think he's a narcissist and a somewhat sociopath. And I think he's found ways to get out of trouble. Like we're going to hear some of these tapes by using the emergency room doctor. And I think it was planned. It was rehearsed. And they had all the material. He's sitting in a jail cell for a year to prepare his defense.
H. Maz just became a YouTube member. Reminder, 7 p.m. Eastern time tonight, a special event, Ask Carm Anything. It is for YouTube and Patreon members only. Not too late to sign up. Maybe the COE can put the links in there for Patreon and YouTube members. Special Ask Carm Anything. It is the Sunday night ahead of the trial. And look at this from Black Widower, Tim. This is no small feat. She's a tough woman from the Republic of Ireland. I love Tim. She keeps people straight in the chat. I know that. And then we've got Catherine.
Black Widow.
Yeah. And that's Catherine in Maui after the Maui fires. Meg P. Tim, thank you for being here. Tim Jansen, before we get to these wiretaps.
Yep.
Georgia really chipped away at this whole double extortion theory. It was this notion that he was on a layaway plan with the Latin King gangs, and he could only pay $138,000, and he was now paying Katie $3,000 a month. I mean, it's just at its base, at its core, it is a ridiculous theory. But the jurors, and by the way, there is one juror that has me concerned, and Katie and I talked about this in person, sits on the top row all the way closest to the door where the bailiff leads him in and out. He makes odd faces. Sometimes he looks like he's nodding in agreement with Daniel Rashbam. He's probably the only one that really looks at Charlie on the stand. So, Katie, have you changed your mind about him at all? He's just tough to read.
I have, but I can't reveal why. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I have.
Okay. For the better or for the worse?
Joe, let me ask you something. You said he's on the top row. So there's 6 across, 6 in the middle, and he's number 13.
There's word that he's an alternate. We don't know.
If he's number 13, he's an alternate.
Yeah, I think he might be an alternate. That is what someone said. I can tell you this. The majority of women appear to be middle-aged or close to middle-age African-American women. And I grew up the child of a psychiatrist and the son of a social worker sitting next to me. They do not like Charlie Adelson. I can tell you that. I'm watching them. They do not like him. And Tim, to our point that we've discussed so many times, I don't think they like Daniel Rashbam. Now, if they had Tim Jansen in there, a Tallahassee local, you're one of them, Tim. Daniel Rashbam is a definite outsider. Does that hurt Charlie in some ways, potentially?
It does. I'm probably sure that I probably know at least one or two of those jurors. It's a small town. I've either represented somebody or know somebody. I don't understand why these lawyers and these families from South Florida come up here and don't hire a local lawyer who knows the judges, who knows the jurors. I think it's their disdain. They think everything up north is we're smarter than them. It's a hunky little town. We can pull the wool over these people. We're more sophisticated. And it hasn't worked yet, has it? I thought the whole fiasco with the juror consultant picking the jury was a major mistake. I think that was the first major mistake. I think not having a competent local counsel to help break up the work and divvy it up was another big mistake. But people, it's his money, it's his life and his defense, and we'll see what the jury does.
One thing that I observed, and I didn't hear anybody else mention, is how condescending Charlie was to Georgia.
Yes. And I have to
say, it was uncomfortably, almost you wanted to scream at him the way he talked down to her.
And by the way, Carm was doing her homework. She watched all week, and she immediately texted me and said, I think the reason Georgia is calling him doctors, some people were asking, is that doctors are overwhelmingly convicted in criminal trials because
in malpractice.
Malpractice. Well, because they don't like the fact that they're know-it-alls. There's an old joke. What's the difference between God and a doctor? God doesn't know everything. That's the old joke. My dad used to tell it. So Charlie came across that way. Katie, go ahead.
To Carm's point, I did hear somebody else say that too. So you were really good to catch up on that, the misogyny that was coming through with the way he was treating Georgia. And so he's simultaneously doing that and these little digs at her. And at the same time, he's a shrinking violet and afraid of this tiny Filipino woman without a weapon who keeps threatening him, and he's afraid and needs her protection, right? So it doesn't fly.
And by the way, she stays the night after extorting him. Go ahead, Tim.
I think he respects Georgia. I think he's fearful of Georgia. But could you imagine if Sarah would have done the cross? Could you imagine his responses to her? They would have been even multiplied. He would have showed disrespect for her. And Sarah is a very likable person, a very common sense. And when she cross-examined Katie last time, just simple questions, she was listening, she'd tear her apart. And I thought Sarah could have done a better job than Georgia, just because of their personalities.
Look at this, Carm, from Nietzsche's muse. Carm, you raised an outstanding journalist. How about that, Carm? You have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I worked on it from kindergarten on.
Yeah, there you go. Carm and Katie, the queens of justice. They are here live. Look at this from Carol. Best guest, but also best format and better community. Don't forget it. We're coming for you. Super Bowl halftime show starring Tim Jansen and Katie Kool-Aid. Carm will be at the Super Bowl halftime show. She will be brought down via cables from a helicopter.
I remember seeing those,
like Lady Gaga style, from the 50-yard line. Carm, they will have you rappel down a helicopter at the.
I need a belt. I need a belt. I don't want to finish my day.
Some inside baseball for those of you who don't know. Carm always comes in. It was at the moment that discovered that my kids. I know for a fact I left my studio key right here on this desk that I'm sitting at, and being away for 5 or 6 days, things disappear. So I couldn't get into the global headquarters. So we're coming to you from Studio 1K.
It's not so bad.
It's not, but I was ready to just rip my kids' heads off. So sometimes it's good to be at court.
Don't even make that joke. Somebody will say you are a child abuser.
Sometimes when you're at court, it prevents child abuse. I love my kids. I would never hurt them. There we go. So, Tim, one more thing, and then we'll get into some of these wiretaps, which we'll get a reaction from Katie and Carmon. You know, I went back and rewatched The Cross, and I have to say, in the courtroom, two things. Number one, it's a little hard to hear Charlie because he's soft-spoken. Number two, you know, he's blocked most of the time by Georgia. And there was no a Perry Mason moment, as everyone is saying. There was no gotcha, but she starts off and she says, "Doctor, have you ever heard the saying that the simplest explanation is always the most likely? Was your explanation to the jury over the last little over a day the simplest explanation?" And that really stood out for me. My point is she was scoring points in that cross that I didn't realize in the courtroom. I don't know if you went back and watched it, but your thoughts after having digested it a little bit.
Well, I think everybody was hoping for the knockout. Everybody believes he's not telling the truth. So our expectations built up because we had to wait a whole day to see him. And we were hoping that Georgia would just tear him apart and he would make an admission or not answer. He didn't do that. He fired back. She hit her shots. He came back with counter punches, and he stuck to his script. And he kept saying about extortion. I think she realized that I'm not going to get much from him. The only question I say, I think one point she missed. He gave her an answer that opened the door because it was about Sigfredo and Sigfredo being high on drugs and stoned, and Lewis did the shooting. She should have gone right there and says, well, doesn't your whole defense require that Sigfredo and Lewis on their own committed this crime? But you know that they're both, he's a druggie and a drunk and he's hothead. He could have never done this on his own, could he? And that's one point I thought she should have asked him. Do you really try to sell this jury that Sigfredo, who tried to run you off the road, who shot the car up on his own, and he couldn't even get the FBI number right, killed these people, planned it, drove 500 miles. You want this jury to believe they did it on their own? You're really telling them that? And what was it going to be?
And in closings, is she going to say that in closings?
I hope so. I pray to God she does.
And Tim, real quick, just logistically, how long will the closings be for each side? And will Georgia and Sarah split up the closing, or is she going to do the whole thing, Georgia?
I think it'd be better for them to split because I think Sarah should lay out their case. They don't want to get off the rails. They want to lay their case. It was a very strong case, very strong when they did their direct. Let Georgia chip away at the points to show how ridiculous hers is. The judge will ask the parties how long they want. They'll say, okay, how much do you want for closing? And they'll divvy it up. If he says I need an hour and a half, then the state will get an hour and a half. And then Georgia and Sarah can split that time. So that's how it works.
By the way, I have to say something. I always thought that the Waldmans were a little similar to the Adelsons and that we're a dysfunctional Jewish family. But in listening to more and more of the wiretaps, Donna was just so sweet to Charlie, called him doll, never raised her voice. And then I realized that's where the huge difference was. And that is why I am the way I am and Charlie's the way. And that's why I would never murder someone.
No, the point is, many times he says, when he has a friend whose mother says, "Oh, sweetheart, oh, darling,"
that's
and
not
he said,
her.
"Why couldn't you be like X's mother?"
Yeah, we'll say it. Matt Brode, my friend Matt Brode.
Yeah, and I said,
Joanna
I'm sorry.
Look at
We
this.
could psychoanalyze me.
Rich Guard says, will Georgia start closing remarks, Tim? And it's interesting. This was my next point here. Will Georgia start closing remarks, Tim, by pointing out that when asked about attending Danny's funeral, Charlie said, and he did say this, "I didn't go to the funeral. I knew what happened to him." This is the direct quote. "I knew what happened to him, and there's no way I could have shown up. I would have been too upset."
Wow.
Tim, did she start with something along those lines?
That's good by Rich Guard because I read the first chapter of Carm's book, and it's heartbreaking.
Ruth's book.
I mean, Ruth's book.
We're all
How
the same.
she found out and how she found out where she was when he was killed. And then for him to say, I found out that night, and then didn't go to the funeral, and how Wendy and the family totally disrespected them, kept the boys, and then fled. It's heartbreaking. I think it is. Tell the jurors, ladies and gentlemen, common sense. What would you do? What would you do? Wouldn't you go to the police? Wouldn't you call your sister? Wouldn't you hire a private investigator? Wouldn't you get protection for your sister and your grandkids? What did he do? He spoke in code, covered it up. He took a Xanax and played this whole rigmarole about being extorted and gave $139,000. But when someone wanted to get $5,000 from him years later, he was all up in arms, going crazy, threatening to kill people. It just doesn't ring true.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. Miranda Lee, Adopt Me, Carm, Katie Kool Lady, go right ahead.
So just to speak to, I am watching the jurors because I know there's been a lot of questions about the jurors, and I sit on the defense side simply because I have a view of them. When you're on the state side, the lectern is right there. Plus the jury is like perpendicular to you. So you just see them from the side. Where I sit, I see them all straight on. So I've been watching them carefully. And I'll just tell you a couple things about during Charlie's testimony. First of all, he made some stupid jokes up there. Like one of them about like, oh, I didn't realize I talked so much until I heard my wiretaps. You know, just being himself. And you know how it is when it's like when somebody yawns, you yawn. When somebody smiles, you smile. Like it's just a natural human reaction to that. I immediately scanned the jury and not one person was smiling. Every time he made these little quips and smiled, not one person joined him on that. That to me was significant. Also, at the times when there's been these lengthy sidebars and he's sitting up there, by the way, very erect, not moving, not, shifting for someone who has such severe back problems that he has. He does not have back problems. I know that. Anyway, so as he's sitting up there awkwardly, just sort of waiting and staring into space, the jurors do not look at him. They're right next to him. And they're just sort of like turning and looking that way, like kind of avoiding. There was one juror, Black woman on the back. One time I saw her look at him, but this was the look. Unwavering. That's the only juror they ever saw looking at him when he's sitting up there awkwardly in the witness stand during those sidebars. So just wanted to throw that out there.
And I'm glad you did. And I can attest, these jurors do not like him. Like Katie just said, he tried to crack a couple of jokes. They did not laugh along with him. They don't like him. There's also reportedly a retired law enforcement officer who I think I know who he is. And you can tell that he's listening exceptionally carefully. There's also a former jury 4 person who's on this jury. So, and I think I know who that is. So it's just interesting to watch them. And by the way, this jury is no nonsense. I mean, they're listening, they're taking notes. They're no real tells. They're just all business. They come in, the judge says good morning, they say good morning back. Amelia here, Katie Kool Lady, did your opinion about the questionable juror change for the better or worse?
I'm not worried about him at all. 0% worried about that juror.
There you go.
So I guess that's for the better.
Yeah, I love that answer. By the way, Marvina, sorry to hear this. Can you please say a prayer for my brother-in-law who's in the ICU? Hope your brother-in-law is okay. Never a good thing. Sorry to hear that. By the way, I've got to give a huge shout out just to everyone watching tonight. I'm not competitive at all, but we destroyed Dan Abrams, who I used to work for. Destroyed him. He's got a company, Law and Crime. Carm, let me add it for 1 second. We have live analysis with Tim Jansen. No one else is doing that. Please join us tomorrow, 8:40 a.m. Dan Abrams, if you're watching. I got you.
Watch out, Dan. Here we come.
I got you, Dan. What are you going to do about it, Dan?
He's like, I didn't raise him like this.
Elf super sticker. Tim, how come jurors weren't allowed to ask questions? Isn't it allowed in Florida? I think this is a judge by judge basis, but go ahead, Tim.
It is allowed judge by judge. This judge does not allow it. I had a couple trials where they did it, and I was kind of skeptical. And then some of the questions I saw, I was even more skeptical, and I was more concerned that we didn't what kind of jury we picked. I saw a question about that. Let me ask, one thing that just bothers me, this whole thing hiring this New York City jury consultant came in and then left. He left the former law enforcement guy on that jury. That looks like the worst thing you can do for the defense. I would never leave former law enforcement on there. And in jury selection, they ask you, have you ever been on a jury? And then they ask you, have you been a four-person and have you reached a verdict? Because the judge wants to know these people are leaders and decision makers. So that's important to know too. So when they says I was a four-person, you really better make sure that guy is lined up on your side, because they can pull the rest of that jury.
I can say that I saw that whole jury selection process, and that you're so right. They ask a lot of questions about, do you consider yourself a leader? Do you consider yourself an independent thinker? And there are many, many people on that jury that answered that they think that they're a leader. One person is an executive chef. That's a leader.
Yeah, you get burned if you don't do it
Carm,
right.
let me ask you a question. Carm, I have a simple question for you, Carm. These two guys, Latin King gang member, one of them, Luis and Sigfredo, and then you've got Katie. Let's for a moment assume that this double extortion, let's for a moment assume it was correct. Why the hell would they drive to Tallahassee, which, by the way, I made that drive and I never want to make it again. It was so long. They did it twice. And why would they target Dan Markel? Why wouldn't they kill Wendy, who's a member of the family? And why would they kill someone before extorting the money? Does any of it make sense to you?
No, it doesn't. This is why I wanted to ask a question.
Please do, Carm.
The question is, did anybody, people who watch us or people who are on the panel right now, did anybody have an intuition that this would be the defense, the extortion? Did you ever even think that this was the story that they were going to concoct?
It was close enough, Carm.
Concoct.
You can get away with it speaking.
Well, I met with Rashbam, and he kind of told me that he was going to turn the Dolce Vita tape into his defense, but he didn't say any more than that. And I listened to the Dolce Vita, I'm like, how in the world is he going to do that? I had no idea he would do that until he did it in the opening. I think he made a mistake doing it that early. He should have waited. He should have done his cross-examination and just sprung it up in the in Charlie's testimony. It would have really thrown off the government, because they got a couple of questions through witnesses to undercut it in their own direct, in their case in chief. So maybe he couldn't help it. The limelight, the camera, he wanted to do it. And I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know what he was thinking about letting those people come pick a jury where he didn't get any kind of rapport with the jury. He stands up, and the first thing he does is bring out this crazy double extortion theory. I think he lost some jurors right there, and I don't think he ever got them back.
So, Tim, do you think he would have fared better if he did not offer any theory at all and just tried to poke holes in the prosecution's case as his whole defense? That's a problem there, because he can go after every witness. He can go after Lewis. He can go after Magdanowa. All these witnesses all have baggage, but he couldn't go after his girlfriend that had the stapled money, right? She had the stapled money. The money was stapled. So he had to come up with some reason why the stapled money came from him, but it wasn't to pay for a murder. I think they started their defense with that premise. That's the most damaging thing. Then the second would be the Dolce Vita. How can we explain all of those? Then they went to the phone recordings and they went backwards. That's how they built this defense. Now, no one told me that. I'm just surmising.
AR, could Wendy, Tim, I know you're not a family court attorney. This is interesting, though. This comment caught my attention. Could Wendy lose custody since Charlie admitted Don and Harvey knew about the killers? They've had this danger to the family this entire time.
But they didn't tell Wendy. Wendy didn't know that till she was in court.
Yeah, she didn't know. I mean,
right.
Shouldn't they have warned them about the danger and harm to these kids?
It's just crazy.
Yeah,
this whole case is crazy.
Yeah, Sue Evans, super sticker. You were on fire, Joel. There's a couple other ones I start for Carm. Go Joel and Tim, super sticker from Phantom. first stream from Cripley. Happy to be here. Go Joel and Tim. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this, Carm. By far the best coverage of the trial. Joel's the man. There was one. Where is it here?
All right,
Oh,
Joel.
relax, Carm.
All right.
Hold on.
Don't toot your own horn.
Oh, this is the one I wanted. Bravo. F. Dan Abrams. LOL. That's the one I was looking for. Right on
Bravo,
cue.
Dan Abrams.
Oh, look at this. Keel Oatmeal says, I love Dan Abrams. I got to tell you, I like Dan too. I really
Joel,
do.
he gave you your chance.
He gave me a job. I like Dan. I just love him. Bonnie Lee Lopez. I love Dan Abrams. Tim did an outstanding job all week providing commentary to the trial and very much appreciate. Okay, let's listen to this first wiretap. I'm going to ask STS Nation a favor. Please share and retweet this after the show's over, because this is important. These are things that people don't know about Charlie, and it would just be very beneficial to share alike this stuff. But this first wiretap here, we have 4 of them. These are things that you have not heard before. This is Charlie basically lying about basically wanting to rework car title. He was selling a car, and let's see if we don't pick it up right at the beginning, we will replay. Here we go.
Charlie?
Yeah, that's not Darren's new car. What are you talking about?
Okay, did Darren sell you a 2012 Land Rover?
No, it's a 2004.
I know. You had told me it was an 04. Dad's got this paperwork to go register. I'm looking at it and saying, well, let me call first to get the insurance straightened out. I find out you only have 14 days, and then I'm giving her the ID number and the year, and she says that the ID doesn't match the year.
Can you hear me at all or no?
Yeah, now I can.
You have 14 days from the date of sale. What is the date of sale of the title? We haven't filled out the date of sale yet, have we?
I told him April 7th.
Why did you tell him April 7th?
Because it gives you till the 21st.
Okay, well, you could tell him April 12th. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't. I've already given it to him. I mean, I'm lying through my teeth with everything else I'm telling him about.
What are you lying through your teeth about? I mean, it was actually before that. It was in March.
No, I know. I don't want to tell him that. You only have 14 days.
No shit. So you write a different date on the title.
Wow.
Yeah, so listen to this part right here. Listen to what Donna says. Listen to what she said.
I told him April 7th.
Why did you tell him April 7th?
Because it gives you till the 21st.
Okay, well, you could tell him April 12th. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't. I've already given it to him. I mean, I'm lying through my teeth with everything.
You hear that? She just admitted, I'm lying through my teeth. They just openly admit about lying, and if it played out to the end, he says just make up a date. He's selling, this is someone, I mean, Carm, they're selling a car to someone and making up a false date. If you lie once, do you lie many times?
Obviously, and I think it's some kind of a Tim would know what kind of a law you are breaking when you change any, the meter on the car and
Tim, what's he doing that's illegal here?
Well, he's committing a fraud with DMV, and the problem is he's not. Normally, you do fraud about how much you paid so you can pay less taxes, right? I'm going to sell you this car, but I'm going to say I bought it much cheaper. Here he's talking to his own mother, and his own mother is saying, I'm lying through my teeth. He quickly, without seconds, is already trying to find a loophole, another way to lie. I mean, it's a pattern of behavior. He does it with his mother, so his mother is a poor mother. A good mother would not allow a son to commit fraud and have her participate in the fraud.
She's an accomplice.
Yeah, by the way, I met Tim's daughter, one of the sweetest, nicest, level-headed people you ever meet. So there you go. Tim, by the way, let's listen to this one more time from the middle, not the entire thing, and I'll get Katie's reaction.
We haven't filled out the date of sale yet, have we?
I told him April 7th.
Why did you tell him April 7th?
Because it gives you till the 21st.
Okay, well, you could tell him April 12th. Does it matter?
No, it doesn't. I've already given it to him. I mean, I'm lying through my teeth with everything else I'm telling him about.
What are you lying through your teeth about? I mean, it was
that
actually before that. It was in March.
No, I know. I don't want to tell him that. You're only
Mom.
14 days.
No shit. So you write a different date on the title.
Man, so easy. Katie, Kool lady. By the way, before you go, Katie, look at this from Hey Mona. Joe, you're so funny, but I don't think Dan Abrams is too worried. I bet you Dan's up right now, watching and rewatching. I bet he doesn't sleep tonight, and it's not because of closing arguments. Go ahead, Katie, Kool lady.
Well, what reflecting on listening to that is how bonded they are in their just toxic behavior and their scheming. And I'm also, I don't know if you guys caught this, but when they were doing the financial stuff and they were listing the list of bank accounts, there's Harvey and Donna, Charlie, Wendy, and there's a separate bank account that is Charlie and Donna, and it had $2 million in it. Very curious about that account. I made some comment like, is that their murder money account?
That's your getaway money.
Yeah. Tim from Madeline Bullet here, like Bullet Bourbon. Tim, can Georgia bring up the Maestro, the famous Maestro license plate on his Ferrari in closing, and never have questioned Charlie Adelson about it? Fingers crossed. Can she bring it up?
Was there a picture of it? And was there any testimony about the Maestro license plate?
I don't.
If so, then she can.
If not, no chance, right?
And it's you got facts of not in evidence. He would probably stand up and object. Although you don't see objections in closings, it really makes you look bad. But he could if he wanted to disrupt her. But if it was introduced or discussed by any witness in the trial, then she can use it in closing.
There's some really good comments. You keep the questions coming to you, Katie. Lynn Strasser, did the jurors look at Ruth or the Markells when she left the courtroom when Charlie was testifying? What do you make of their their eye contact in regards to the Markell family, if anything, Katie?
There's a couple jurors that do look out at the gallery. Our guy on the back, as you know, but I think he has massive ADD. He's just always looking around. I can't tell who they're looking at, but about when Ruth walked out, I was at home because I was losing my mind in that courtroom that day. And it was packed, as you can imagine. I mean, I got there early. There were people waiting to get in the courtroom. I thought we're going to have trouble finding seats today. When do you see a defendant testify in a murder trial, right? And people were losing their minds. There was something about it that True Lifestyles really nailed it when she said it was some sort of combination of sedating and agitating the feeling you were having, and people just left. So, and so I left. I didn't go back for the afternoon. So I wasn't in there when Ruth walked out.
Charles Glover, question for Tim. What do you think about Georgia mentioning the fact that Charlie loved money since he was a kid, but why would he just empty out all the cash in his safe so easily? Another salient point that doesn't jive with the theory.
Yeah, and it doesn't require an answer from Charlie. It goes back to who is Charlie Adelson? The people that you saw in the recordings who was doing things, or the Charlie was on the stand. And if you go back to Charlie, his love of money, he's driving to all these places, all these clients, working all these days because he likes to work. He doesn't have a life, saves money. But yet then he gives $130,000 to Katie that night and then lets her spend the night. It just goes, it defeats common sense. And that's the problem with this defense. In order for him to win, you just got to throw your common sense out the window and believe this crazy story.
Katie girl, Carm, you always look so stylish. Any response?
I'm not. I'm not fake modest. I truly have no style.
Tim Jansen, to you. Do you think this is interesting? Because I think this is the case. His defense is basically throwing the Latin King gang under the bus. Is he putting a nail in his coffin by repeatedly blaming them for extorting him? If he gets convicted, he's going to be a target in prison, isn't he?
Yeah, if the word gets out that he was blaming the Latin Kings, it's not going to go well for him. They'll probably have to put him in segregation. And, it doesn't matter where you get in segregation. They can always get to you. They always have ways to get to you. And he's going to be very nervous. I thought Luis Rivera was a great witness. I thought he was who he was. He admitted who he was. And the real Luis Rivera would have committed a robbery, not a murder, right? He said, why are we doing this? Why don't we just rob the lady? He's not going to go all the way to Tallahassee with this other high drunk Sigfredo, rent a car. It just doesn't make sense.
And he'd be doing this guy, Charlie Adelson, that Sigfredo absolutely despises, doing him a favor. What, like, it just done none of it. You know, he knew that through Katie, apparently he didn't, like Dan. It just doesn't add up. Lindsay Shea, how long does Tim think the jurors will be out for in deliberations, Tim?
If he couldn't get the phone number right for the FBI sting, how do you think he found Dan Markle, where he lived, what he looked like, and got rental cars and came up here twice? The first time he came up here, he shot the car. That's crazy. How long do I think the jurors will be out?
Real quick, then, before you get to that, will Georgia put all of what you just said into the closing arguments?
I hope so, because I put it in my articles every day, and I was hoping. I don't have communication with them. When I was doing commentary for the show, I had a friend texting me during Georgia's cross and wanted to know if I could text her questions during her cross. And I'm like, no, I can't text her while she's doing cross-examination. But I did put bullet points in my articles, and I'm sure someone in the office saw them. I listed 4 big hurdles to his defense, and we'll see. Hopefully I don't need to tell Georgia how to do her job. She's very good at her job. And it's a lot easier for me sitting here, even with 5 fractured ribs, saying what she should have done or shouldn't have done. I respect Georgia, and I respect Sarah, and I respect Daniel. He just got a crappy case.
Yeah. By the way, Daniel is a nice guy. He came up to us. I know he's also smooth talking to us because he wants some good media attention. He's a good guy. He's got a bad client and a bad case, as Tim just said. But I think he's just doing
the case.
He took the case.
How
do you think of the job? How do you think of the job? The Carm. What do you think of the job he's doing?
He's doing a very good job because he sideswept everybody. Nobody expected this line of defense is so far out that nobody even, if you would have asked 20 lawyers like Tim to write down on a piece of paper and put it in a hat and open it only after the trial, what would be the defense? Nobody would have said this would be the defense.
The double extortion. Now, look at that. Carm given some shade, as they say, Carm, which you probably don't know what that means.
I
to
think
Daniel Rashbam.
I got to shade Rashbam too. Can I shade him for a second?
Yeah, please.
It goes with the Charlie lying thing. I don't know if anybody caught this, but Junam Chindas at the very end of her testimony, he asks her something like, did he tell you to lie? Like, I guess insinuating that Charlie never asked her to lie. Did he tell you to lie? She took it as, did he tell you a lie? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, he lied to me. So he ends his questioning on her, and he didn't clean it up. And so he ends his questioning across of her of saying Charlie is a liar, basically. And Georgia just picked that right up and went with it.
I don't think I caught that.
Great lawyering.
Yeah. Elf with a super sticker. When Daniel Rashbaum asked Charlie a question and stated the date in the question, and Charlie corrected him, Tim, do you think this was staged on purpose?
Asked Charlie, and Charlie corrected him. Well, I don't know if that was staged, or maybe Dan got his notebook, his script wrong, and Charlie, they weren't on the same page on that issue. I would have believed a little more of his testimony if he would have said, oh, I don't recall. I don't remember. It's been a long time ago. Not once. I was waiting for one time in 8 hours of testimony about an event that occurred 8 and 9 years ago. It's not believable.
Actually, it didn't happen 8 or 9 years ago. It happened this last year in his prison cell when he created this story.
Right. But I mean, the facts he was reciting back, some of them happened a long, long time ago, like the night that he was extorted from Katie, this double extortion.
Which, by the way, he's going to give away the $138,000, no problem. But when this quote unquote second extortion comes, he's like mortally worked up about $5,000. He can't.
He's going to shoot somebody. He's going to shoot him.
Over the $5,000. Yeah, he can't deal with it. Look at this. Best question of the night from Joyette Matai. STS chief of everything. Do you and Carm always get along? Carm, do you always get along with the COE?
And Joel gets very upset that the women team up against
100%.
him.
You gang up on 100%. Tornado artist.
See, we have no private lives anymore. You know everything.
Tim, by the way, there's a lot of not conspiracy, that's not the right word, but in essence, people think that there's something going on because they spent so much money on this very high profile Josh Dubin, the jury consultant. Tornado artist says, Tim, do you think Rashbam brought in the jury consultant Josh Dubin to pick a jury that would convict Charlie? Oh, wait, I didn't read this right. So that he states Adelson family innocence and Rash has plausible deniability. If Charlie Adelson is convicted, this seems far-fetched. What do you say, Tim?
I'm thinking that Rash wanted to try this case on his own, didn't want co-counsel. And so what he told him was, we've got a defense. We don't need other lawyers. All we need is to hire these high-priced people. We don't need a local lawyer. We just get these jury consultants. They can tell us who to pick, and he can take the glory of the fall on his own. That I can't think of any other reason. I've talked to a lot of lawyers who I respect that are older than me. None of them have ever heard of letting a jury consultant ask questions. I've had jury consultants in cases. They tell you what to pick. They'll pass yes or no, but they're not going to stand up when I'm standing up talking to the jury. Never.
Kerry Lama with the super sticker. Hi, guys. Best panel anywhere, including news. Dan Abrams, Law and Crime. Just need fancy. Anyway, Sigfredo just took 35 minutes and Katie's took 8 hours. I predict Charlie's deliberations will take 5 hours. Guilty, obviously, preposterous story. Let's get on to this next wiretap here. This comment real quick. I think Rashbam is very unethical. He can't believe this defense himself. Who knows? But here's a wiretap with Charlie talking about selling steroids, and he is selling steroids to his friend on the phone. Let's listen in.
I'm definitely going to get the Anabar from you, but I want the Anabar. Hey, what's up? Hey, bud. Yeah, no, I hate putting stuff in text message. I don't blame you there. I got Anabar. Oh, Anabar, bro. Yeah, you don't want Anadrol, man. That stuff will make you break out, turn you into a gorilla. You're not going into the UFC. So you're fine. Yeah, Anabar. I want Anabar for maintenance. So I'm definitely gonna get the Anabar from you, but I want the Anadrol too. And also, can you get injectables? Because I was thinking about taking a trend and a test cycle. Yeah, I mean I can. It's just part of the thing is just the hassle for me to drive out to get it from this guy. But when's the next time you're going out to reload from the guy? Because I can tell him what I want. I mean, so I do want the Anabar. I'll get. What do you want to? Maybe I'll get like 4 of them. Yeah, like 4 are probably good. So that'll be 8. Yeah, that'll be 880, right? Yeah. Okay. So 880 on that, and then I'll just get that like in the next day or two. And then when you get the Anadrol, just let me know. And any injectable tests, 300 or 400, and Tren. All right, well, that's it. When you do this, when you come and see me, I'll write it down. Write down exactly what you want, and then I'll send it to my guy. Okay. Sweet. But no credit card, no check. No, it's got to be cash. Yes. Okay, no problem.
Oh my.
That's all right. I don't take Amex anymore. No, it makes sense. If you're doing this shit, people like me and you, we can't have any records of it. So.
You hear that? So he says, it's hard to hear. Carm's yelling at me to raise the volume. I can't because this is what we get from the wiretaps, but you can play it again. But at the beginning, so Charlie is, first of all, dealing illegal drugs, steroids, to a friend of his. He's got a dental license, so he's a medical worker, and he's doing that, which is obviously incredibly unethical, not to mention it's illegal. But he says he doesn't text. So right there, he's showing his own culpability. And that to me, that plays to the fact that they're using all these code words once they know that they're actually being wiretapped. And then at the end, there's a joke. We'll listen to this back half one more time, that he doesn't take credit cards, doesn't take Amex, because obviously he doesn't want to trail doesn't want to get caught. So let's just listen to the middle to the end here.
Yeah, like 4 would probably be good. So that'll be 8. Yeah, that'll be 880, right? Yeah. Okay. So 880 on that, and then I'll just get that like in the next day or two. And then when you get the Anadrol, just let me know. And any injectable tests, 300 or 400, and Tren. All right, well, that's it.
When you do this, when you come and see me,
I'll write it down.
write down exactly what you want, and then I'll send it to my guy. And
Okay. Sweet.
But no credit card, no check.
No, it's got to be cash.
Yes,
Okay, no problem.
that's all right. I don't take Amex anymore.
No, it makes sense. If you're doing this shit, people like me and you, we can't have any records.
People like me and you, we can't have any records. Katie Kool Lady, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it's just more Charlie being Charlie. I did hear something today from someone who is in the know of this case. I don't have anything to back it up, but that he does have a criminal record related to this steroid business. And I said, well, was he arrested? And they said that they believed he was charged with this steroid stuff, and that encouraged me to dig into it a little bit, but that it wouldn't be coming out in this case. So for what it's worth, well, I'll see what I can find out.
Tim Jansen, we got a question from the COE. Why do you think more audio tapes like the ones we're listening to right now were not used as evidence? Because it does play to his character.
It does, and you can't bring in bad character. But what it tells you is everything you need to know. This guy's a bad guy. He's got he's a doctor making money, and he's selling drugs on the side. He's a drug dealer. He's being cautious how he does it, doesn't want cash, doesn't want a trail. He so quickly came up with the numbers. Didn't want to do Amex. I don't know if it's because of a trail, because he doesn't want to pay the 3%. Goes back to the money thing. What the court would do is what's the 403 analysis. You got to weigh the prejudicial versus the probative value. And is it too prejudicial for a jury to hear this? And I think the judge made the right call, because it would be. He wouldn't get a fair trial. And should he be prosecuted for murder or convicted for murder because he's a drug dealer? And maybe the state decided they weren't even going to try to do that. But it tells you everything you need to know. And so all these people on here that are saying, I believe him, I think he's innocent. I hope you listen to what he did with the car titles. I hope you listen to what he's doing about selling drugs, and you realize the person you're dealing with, and that he doesn't deserve your second nature and want to believe him. He doesn't deserve the credibility you're giving him.
STS Nation, once again, please share this YouTube live once it's over on your social, so people will get to see the real Charlie Adelson. It's important to get it out there. Jerry Michael says he wants nothing traceable back to him. Tim, this is another question that's interesting from Susie Q. For real, why didn't Georgia ask Charlie, why didn't you record the extortion for evidence against the people that unalived your brother-in-law? That's interesting. He did nothing to really cover his own behind.
He did not record it. You know, his mother did commit a crime. She was recording the conversation. Florida's a two-way state, so she committed a felony by recording the conversation with the FBI person. Why didn't he record it? You can't record something that doesn't happen, right? Yeah. I just don't believe it.
Unreal. Barley Hope, question for the chat. Was Sigfredo a Latin king or just Luis? It was just Luis. Sigfredo was not a great guy. And once again, they live smack dab in the middle between me and Carm in a very small area, which is interesting. So Carm is basically, you're like a hood rat, Carm. You're part of the gang. I love it. On to speeding tickets here. This is Charlie Adelson talking about how he gets out of his speeding tickets. By the way, he's speaking to his mother, Donna Adelson. What's interesting to me, being the observer that I am, being the son of this woman, is her tone and cadence is completely different. Donna's is when she doesn't worry about the wiretaps. At this point, I don't think she knows about them, and she talks much differently. So let's take a listen.
Got him out of 2 speeding tickets also in the last 3 weeks also.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what I do? I work at Broward General in the ER. There's an unwritten rule that they will never give a ticket to an ER doctor.
Really?
Because if they get hurt, the first face they're going to go see is you. And every cop knows that. If they get hurt on the job, the first place they're going is Broward.
Really?
They're going to the yeah, they go to Broward General. They're going to the ER, Broward General. So do you want to look up and see the face of the guy you just gave a ticket to when you walk in there?
That's funny. I would never have thought that.
Yeah, Jerry told me that. He's like, man, I got out like 8 or 9 tickets. I go, how? He told me. So I got pulled over. Remember I told you I was in the HOV lane with no driver's license and a handgun underneath my seat? He ran the license. He ran the VIN number on the serial number on the handgun and told me just be safe and try to stay out of the HOV.
This guy's like a gangster. So just because it's hard to hear at first. So he's talking to his sweet mother, Donna, and tells him how he's gotten out of 2 speeding tickets. And the way he did it is by lying and saying he's an ER doctor at Broward General, the big hospital by him, because no ER doctor, no law enforcement officer wants to, God forbid, end up at the ER and have given a ticket to an ER doctor. And then he goes on to say that when he was stopped one of the times, he had tough guy Charlie had his gun under the seat. So let's listen to that one more time and then we'll get reaction.
I've gotten out of 2 speeding tickets also in the last 3 weeks also.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what I do? I work at Broward General in the ER. There's an unwritten rule that they will never give a ticket to an ER doctor.
Really?
Never. Because if they get hurt, the first face they're going to go see is you. And every cop knows that. If they get hurt on the job, the first place they're going is Broward.
Really?
They're going to the yeah, they go to Broward General. They're going to the ER, Broward General. So do you want to look up and see the face of the guy you just gave a ticket to when you walk in there?
That's funny. I would never have thought that.
Yeah, Jerry told me that. He's like, man, I got out like 8 or 9 tickets. I go, how? He told me. So I got pulled over. Remember I told you I was in the HOV lane with no driver's license and a handgun underneath my seat? He ran the license. He ran the VIN number on the serial number on the handgun and told me just be safe and try to stay out of the HOV.
And by the way, when you hear Donna's reaction, Carm would be screaming at, what are you doing? You're crazy. You're going to get in trouble. She says, that's so funny, Charlie. That's so funny, Charlie. Katie Kool lady, this is, this is not committing murder, but it's being incredibly slimy, unethical, and basically a horrible human being. What do you make of it?
I got a question for Carm on this. So this displays this really bizarre relationship, mother-son relationship. And so this is my question, Carm. So with Wendy, she does a very good job of picking out a very good choice for a husband for Wendy. She's clearly interested in a quality person. You couldn't get a better husband than Dan Markel. Then with her son, she cheerleads him for this aberrant behavior, dating women that are much younger, and God knows what he's doing on these sex tour trips he's going on. And she seems to be like all in with him on this absolutely opposite of respectable behavior. What is going on?
It's almost like vicariously she gets her thrills through his stories. She has a pretty gray existence with this rather non-exciting dentist husband. And then these stories are like, they give her excitement. And I don't know her own background and her story, but she certainly likes crime.
Tim Jansen, Carm's always quick with her answers. It amazes me. 84 years old, still sharp as a tack, Carm, and she's on it.
But the question is, does she make any sense?
So, Joel, let me tell you.
I always think I make sense with this because the relationship is that he's entertaining her with his devious behavior, and she loves it because she likes the bad boy. And why isn't he married? She was so anxious to marry of her daughter, but she's in no rush of marrying of
That's
Charlie.
true of you too, Carm. You didn't.
No, it's absolutely not true.
We can beg to differ there.
Carm has been right on with his family dynamics from the jump. She's the one person that nailed Harvey. And now we know, because of what we've seen, that Carm was right about Harvey the whole
Carm's
time.
convinced Harvey has a lot to do with this. Look at this. Carm McSpunky, who I was calling MC Spunky, but it's McSpunky. He's now gifted 5 more. This guy gifts like 5 memberships. 8.
Maybe he's a billionaire.
Nate McSpunky, are you a billionaire? Then I won't feel so badly. Let me know. Jessica K. Another.
But
super
that's
sticker.
very nice. Really, I don't think he's a billionaire. He's just like
Just 100, worth 150
no,
million.
he just wants to recognize that you are doing a good job.
Carm, what's the difference between 50 million and 850 million?
I don't know, because you have to have 3 lives to spend that, and you are not
I was having
going.
a conversation with the COE
It's
about
like,
that.
how
Adam
many-
Sandler's worth
how
like
many-
800.
How many chairs can you sit
By
on
the
one
way,
at once?
If anyone has a connection to Adam Sandler, this is actually an important thing. Reach out to me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail. I need to ask his mother something. It's a long story. Jessica K. Did they ever say how exactly the 2 kings got Dan's address, details, etc.? I mean, this would be important to disprove the extortion nonsense. Kay, do you want to take that? I mean, Tim alluded to that just a short while ago. How would they know where to go, who to get, etc., etc.? What's your thought?
Well, I'm not surprised they didn't loop back into suggesting that they went on the prof's blog for that, to find that. I mean, obviously there's, I mean, it didn't, somewhere they suggested that. Was it in the opening or somewhere? But yeah, I think they dropped that like a hot potato as well. They should. Or on Dan's Facebook page, that they somehow got that information. And there's just nothing to back that up. I mean, obviously it's hogwash.
So Joel, can we
Go
go back to the ticket thing? Because I had a case one time and I represented a heart surgeon, the #1 heart surgeon in Tallahassee. His wife was pulled over for a DUI. And somehow I got the number of the investigator investigating the DUI. I get him on the phone. He goes, "Tim, how'd you get my number? I'm in the middle of my investigation." And then he says, "Listen, I know she's drunk, but I know her husband. And if I'm shot one day, I'm going to need him to save my life. So how about we give her a reckless driving and we all go on our way?" And we're like, we're good with that. That exactly did happen.
Wow.
And the heart surgeon I represented saved many people's lives.
Wow.
So I can see him saying that because, yeah, when you get shot, you don't want to have something bad when you're going to the ER. But what he did was atrocious, you know.
Horrific. Kristen here for you, Tim. Have you seen a jury come back with either an acquittal or a holdout due to a complicated, confusing defense?
I don't think there's any chance of an acquittal at all. I think if that one juror is out, the guy, I think you're going to have a verdict Tuesday. I think because by the time they're done, they read the jury instructions, they'll probably go out at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock on Monday. He probably won't he could keep him overnight. He'll let him do some work, but I think maybe Tuesday, because it is a very serious offense, some complicated stuff. I think if we don't get a verdict by Tuesday night, then we might be looking at maybe a hung jury, but I still think they'll convict. I don't think they bought it. A lot of people are making a big deal about his story, but I think the jurors do the right thing. They really try to do the right thing when they raise their hands and they know it's a high profile case. They try to do the right thing.
I would have created a different plot, a different story. Since Rivera and Sigfredo couldn't pull this off on their own at all, I would have said that in hindsight, when he thought it over, it was McBanua who is bright and who is a good organizer. She's the one who created the story. That would have made a little bit more sense than the 2 guys.
Well,
I just got inspiration just this minute to say this.
Well, she is alleged to be the quote unquote mastermind, but she's sleeping over at his house. So who knows? But Tim Jansen from Jennifer Ray. Charlie testified his dad could back up his whisper. They talk about the Matsuri tapes, and Charlie says, "Well, I whispered something to my father." So he's saying, can the jury consider the fact that his life is on the line and supposedly innocent, yet his parents weren't there? They didn't testify. How much does the jury look at the fact that they're not there to support him in any way?
Well, that's a double-edged sword for Georgia. Georgia can't shift what they call shift the burden, right? She can't say, why didn't you bring people to back up your story? Because he doesn't have to present any case. And if she makes that the center point of her argument, they can have an objection in the mistrial saying you're shifting the burden. You carry the burden the whole time. Now, if they start doing that, depending on how Rashbam does it, she can say, well, you know, ladies and gentlemen, the defense gets subpoena power just like the state. And he testified. And in their minds, the jurors are probably thinking that. And that's why I said, I'd love if we get a hung jury here, they should charge Donna, have Donna as a co-conspirator. Then they'll be at trial together. Is Donna not going to testify? Or is she going to testify? Will she hold up like Charlie? That would be the undoing of his case if she didn't testify, right? Because you're on trial for your life and you're not saying the same story. But I just don't see an acquittal. I don't see former law enforcement officer. I don't know what former law enforcement, but if he's a former law enforcement, he's not going to buy this. I mean, he's seen this before. He knows it's just a made-up defense.
Joyette Matai with another question here. Carm, do you think Rob Adelson, the estranged son, who's a doctor up in Albany, can heal and move on with, by the way, the Adelsons, one doctor, one periodontist, one lawyer, Carm. It's better than you did. Carm, do you think Rob Adelson, my sister's a doctor, but I'm obviously the black sheep. Carm, do you think Rob Adelson can heal and move on with his life? Or will there always be a sense of sadness because he's from a family of narcissistic sociopaths who committed murder? Your take on Rob Adelson, Carm.
I don't know Rob Adelson. I don't know how much inner resources he has, how much support he gets from his wife, and how much love he gets. And I would say that you can overcome many things in life, even though the scar tissue is there, but you can overcome it with hard work, psychological hard work, and time.
By the way, the watcher says ER doctors ethically have to treat a trigger man the same as a victim. But if I was an ER doctor and someone gave me a ticket, it might take a few extra seconds to wash my hands as a person who's in cardiac arrest. That's just me.
No, you wouldn't. You would not. That's why you are not an emergency doctor.
Pizza driver, super sticker. I rewatched George's closings. Closing Katie's trial succinct. I don't know exactly what. I guess she's rewatching old closings, and it was succinct. I guess that's what she's saying. And I'm just slow tonight. Joel, Wendy told them about Dan. Luis said it. Carm, go ahead. Carm.
Well, now wait a second.
And one more wiretap. David Warner, super. Let's listen to this final wiretap. And by the way, this one here is again Charlie and Donna, and it's gross because this is after the murder of Dan Markel. And listen to Charlie saying how lucky Wendy is. Listen to this. How lucky Wendy is after her.
Oh yeah, it's a good tape. Yeah.
You kidding me?
Comprehend at all how lucky she is.
No, she doesn't.
It doesn't register in her head how lucky she is at all. No. Not even nothing. It's just, which is great. But at least she doesn't see herself as a victim anymore, which is great too.
I'm just happy to hear that she is spending more and more time with Dave. That's great.
Yeah, no, so she's
and the funny thing was, I actually thought about it would be nice to invite him, but then I thought, I can't do that because his wife probably has kids on Mother's Day. Maybe he wants to do something with her, even though it's an ex-wife, she's still the mother of his children.
No. He paid her $3 million to get lost.
That's a nice payment.
I wish I really paid $3 million to get lost.
I didn't understand.
So this is Charlie talking to his mother, Donna, about how lucky Wendy is. And he says that he doesn't consider himself a victim. And that threw me for a minute. But he's talking about a victim to Dan Markel, not a victim because the husband was murdered, but a victim to Dan Markel, which is an important distinction. And then they're talking about, I think, someone that Wendy wanted to bring to meet the family, and that person paid his wife $3 million to go away, and Charlie saying, I would have taken those $3 million. That's basically what we're hearing. Let's listen to it one more time, and then we'll break it down and get thoughts. Here we go. Charlie talking to Donna about how lucky Wendy is that her husband, Dan Markel, was murdered.
How long after the murder?
I don't know what the date of the wiretap is, but it's definitely after the fact, Carm. Good question.
Like a month, 3 months,
this
6
is
months?
well after, a few years after.
Okay.
You know, I got him out of 2 speeding tickets also in the last 3 weeks.
Wrong one, everyone. Wrong one.
The technical officer, Joel,
doesn't comprehend at all how lucky she is.
Oh, she doesn't.
It doesn't like register in her head how lucky she is at all. No, like not even like nothing. It's just, which is great, you know. But at least she doesn't see herself as a victim anymore, which is great too.
I'm just happy to hear that she is spending more and more time with Dave. That's great.
Yeah, no. So she's.
And the funny thing was, I actually thought about it would be nice to invite him, but then I thought, oh, I can't do that because his wife probably has kids on Mother's Day. Maybe he wants to do something with her, even though it's an ex-wife. She's still the mother of his children.
No. He paid her $3 million to get lost.
That's a nice payment.
I wish I really paid $3 million to get lost.
By the way, he just discard. He paid her $3 million to get, tell her to get lost. He has no respect for women either. Katie, what are you thinking when you listen to this?
The thing that sticks out to me, other than, just the more of the toxicity between them, is that how it sounds like Donna's like in a closet talking softly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, is she hiding from Harvey talking to him? And I'm going to ask Carm another question here, but there's another thing I've noticed about Donna that is so creepy, that when she's talking to Charlie, like after the bump and, this urgent calls, she has the kids, she has the boys, and she floats seamlessly out of grandma normal conversation with the boys, just right into this creepy, scared talk with Charlie about this bump. And then she slips right, oh, honey, here's your mac and cheese or whatever. And then right back into that. What is going on there?
Well, can I just attach to it one more question that I have, that when Donna is talking to the FBI agent, the way she acts, and she says in the very end, she says, well, just go and get the $100,000. Go to the police. Like a bravado, huh? Bravado.
Carm, let me ask you a question. Would you have been, if someone tried to extort you on the street, would you have been smart enough to take out your cell phone and take a photo of this person?
No.
You wouldn't
because it would take me a half hour until I find the camera on my phone, and no, it would be a disaster.
Moto 88. Do you think Georgia had some info, Tim, that led her to question Charlie Adelson about whether he has negative feelings about Wendy?
But wait a second.
Well, I think
you didn't get an answer.
Oh, sorry. What was the answer you're looking for, Carm?
I wanted to understand Donna the same way that you wanted to understand Donna. I didn't understand why would she behave the way she did with the FBI agent and say to him, well, go to the police and get the 100,000 from the police. That somehow doesn't match with the fact that she knows that they are the ones who did it.
By the way, Carm,
it's a bravado. I want feedback on this.
By the way, I know we're talking a murder trial, but it is the shortest day of the year, and my seasonal affect disorder kicks in.
Okay, you are not interested.
Lizzie Fabulous says, my first super, we're going to get back to it in 1 second. Relax, Carm. My first super chat. I agree. The differences between Charlie and Wendy are wild. He's a gangster, and she has the prim, proper writer persona. And Donna is all in the middle. Love STS. Tim and Joel, thank you. Carm, question, and you can get back to your trying to get your answer. Does Wendy have total immunity, Tim?
Yes.
She does. Carm, a lot of people are asking, what is your diagnosis, if you will, of Wendy? What do you think of Wendy?
Windsor.
Hi, buddy.
I am not good at diagnosis. I would have to really think through. It was like also came like from the side. This because we were talking about Dana, and now I have to go into Wendy.
All right. So what do you
For
want?
one thing,
focus
she's
on Donna?
passive. She's passive because she lets other people clean up for her, and she even says somewhere that she is not very confrontational. I don't give diagnosis. I learned it from my husband. He didn't want to label people like narcissistic, psychopathic, so psychotic, so forth. Every case is different. Every person is different, and I think that Wendy is like my husband once said, and I think I told you this once before. If you are spoiled, that's a diagnosis too, because a lot of things stem from the fact that the person is spoiled or entitled or getting things for nothing. And that was the case with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
This question here, and then we'll start to wrap it up, from Kerry B. Carm. Charlie said he has, quote unquote, innate anger for Wendy. Does that mean from birth? What an odd thing to say. What do you make of that comment, Carm?
The word innate?
Innate anger. Innate
like
anger.
It's imprinted in his genome, in his genetics?
Yeah, genome. But yes,
genome.
That's a Hungarian pronunciation.
Oh, okay, sorry. I don't think we should read that much into it. Sibling rivalries, not unusual.
I have none with my sister. My sister became a doctor in 6 years, college and medical school, all in 6 years. She was valedictorian of her high school class. She is the perfect child. And she's been
perfect since then.
And I am the imperfect child. She has more kids. I have the only boy, so I win. Katie Kool Lady, the only boy. If I haven't said that,
I don't know where it comes from, this winning business.
By the way, I never said I don't like Dan Abrams. I just said I love beating Dan Abrams. There's a big difference there. Sandy D, I'm a federal law enforcement officer now. I just got nervous, and there's no chance I'd believe a word that comes from the Adelsons. They're a toxic family through and through. It's interesting because there's a retired law enforcement officer on this jury, and might be thinking just like this super sticker. I love you, Kathy, Katie Kool Lady, from Cynthia Breyer. Look at that. What's not to love? Katie's name fits. Just because they're all creeps and belong in prison, they put on charades their whole life. It's like second nature to them. Yes, they are all creeps. And usually
I like the term put on charades all the time. Live.
By the way, I played charades with my family the other night, and my 4-year-old son was beating everyone. It was amazing. Carm is so cute from Misdemeanor OG. Wisdom with childlike innocence at the same time. Look at that, Carm.
The what?
You have wisdom and childlike innocence all at once.
I don't think so.
Cynthia Breyer, Katie Kool Lady is amazing. She lived this type of nightmare for 30 years. I love you, Kathy, Katie Kool Lady. Katie, it is Sunday night. It is, I don't know the date, November something. And tomorrow could be a huge day. How are you feeling? What are your thoughts? Are you going to be able to sleep this evening?
I'll sleep, but I'll be there bright and early tomorrow morning for those closings. I was really glad to hear from Tim tonight that they could, if they want, they can split it. People didn't know that if they could split between the two prosecutors. I think what he described would be the best scenario. Sarah first, Georgia second. I think they're going to kick it out of the park tomorrow. And I think depending on when they end, we could have a verdict tomorrow afternoon on my birthday. And I have a bottle of champagne in my refrigerator right now waiting.
And once again, happy birthday to Katie Kool Lady. Ferrucci Napoli. Georgia finally met her match in the courtroom. Charlie gave her the floor, then jabbed the hell out of her like Ali did to Foreman. So some people think that Charlie beat up on Georgia. Everyone's got their right to their own opinion. The only ones that matter are those jurors. Tim Jansen, can't thank you enough again. You'll be back with me tomorrow bright and early, 8:40 a.m. We'll be doing live coverage and commentary. You won't find that anywhere else, especially not at Law and Crime, but you will find it here at STS. Tim, are you going to sleep tonight, Tim Jansen, despite your broken ribs? And let me ask you this. How tense is it the night before closings for someone like Rashbam, Mr. Daniel Rashbam, and Georgia Kappelman? Are they able to sleep the night before something like this? Are they seasoned and okay? What is their state of mind?
Well, you know, what's the saying? The star player. If you're not a little bit nervous, you're not taking it serious. I don't care who you are, what case you've got, you're always nervous. I've always been nervous because you want to make sure you say the right thing, remember everything. You want to come across smart, or at least like you're organized, and you have to believe in your story. And you want to make sure you don't say something stupid that they all laugh. I want to clear up something. You asked me about immunity for Wendy. She only has use immunity. She only has immunity from and derivative from the statements she testified. She doesn't have full immunity. So if they prosecute her, they would have to get evidence outside of that. It can be hard because of Castigar that they could argue that it came from her testimony. And about Charlie's hate for his sister. If I was Georgia, I would play snippets of the tapes in my closing that would implicate Donna. The first bump, it probably involves the two of us, right? Play that tape right there. Then play the next tape. She doesn't realize how lucky she is. That is a confession. She doesn't realize what we've done for her. And third, he has an innate against her, feelings against her, because he's always covering for her. Everybody's taking care of her. We're taking risks for her. We do everything for little Wendy. And look at you and me, Mom. We're the ones subject to all this. We've got the nerves and stress. And I would push that and play the tapes.
Damn, I wish Tim was doing the closings right now. Don't you, Katie?
Mm-hmm.
That's a guilty verdict right there from Tim doing them. Lindsay Shea, Tim, what does Tim think? You went over this a little at the top, but just to wrap it up here, Tim, what does Tim think the verdict will be, and how long will the jurors be out for?
Well, first you got to figure out when will the jury go out. By the time they do both closings and then the judge gives the instructions, it'll probably be after lunch. So they probably won't get the case till lunchtime. So that's like 4 hours. The judge, now when the jury is deliberating, the judge can keep them in the courthouse past 6 o'clock. They have overtime and they got rules for that. I'm curious to see how long he'll make them go. He'll probably gauge the jurors if they have questions, and there could be questions. Those happen all the time, questions. And then when the questions come in, it'll be a note. I always want to look at the question because the juror foreperson has to sign it. Some federal judges know what I'm doing when I'm asking to see the note. He just wants to read it. I said, Judge, can we see the note? And they'll say, Mr. Jansen, I know, but it's not signed. But we want to know. We want all the information we can get, right? We want it so we can know who wrote that question. Those are the little things you do in trials. But I mean, I think Tuesday would be a reasonable time for a verdict, unless he keeps them really late Monday night.
Little bit. Would love to have lunch with Carmen, Dr. Burgess. We've got some signed Dr. Burgess books we're going to be giving away. Reminder once again, live coverage beginning at 8:40. One final thing, Tim Jansen, if there is a conviction in this case, number one, are the feds watching Donna right now? And number two, does she get arrested?
You know, I don't know if the feds are watching her. And can she get arrested? I think they can, but I'm sure they're just waiting to see what happens with this case. And I think they're going to want to talk to the jurors afterwards. And they're going to want to get the pros and cons and see if they thought if enough jurors talk to the state and say, we think you had enough for Donna, I think they'll go forward, right? You know, they're not going to want to make a mistake. I think one mistake Georgia did do, I think she should have interviewed. She should have gone down there and interviewed the mother and father, because I think she would have found out this defense before it happened, because I think they would have told her this whole defense. And if they didn't tell her of the extortion defense, then they could have subpoenaed them, right, as rebuttal witnesses to his defense, right? So, you know,
Can I just say?
You can always have. You can have the last word.
I think that Georgia ran into a very, very difficult person, because Charlie is arrogant, not polite, not respectful, aggressive, nasty, and I can think of other adjectives, but you get it. And Georgia is a true, well-behaved, polite, sweet person who is
Joe,
not.
can I answer this question? Because it says they said the parents would have taken the fifth. We had a hearing on that. The judge was going to hold him in contempt. He was going to put him in custody. And the lawyer for the parents said they would make him available to be interviewed. So I want everybody to know, Georgia could have interviewed them before the trial.
E Company says Karma's so cute, Joel not so much. I got one at least that I saw that said be nice to your mother. Usually there's 1,000.
He's disappointed if
Andy
he doesn't.
schooling me from Detroit. STS COE deserves big thank you. COE, thank you for holding down the household and kids while Joel went on location. Tim and I are going to be covering more trials in the future. We're working out the deets right now. Thank you, everyone. This comment says it all. Justice for Dan Markel. Katie Kool Lady doing a act of kindness in honor of Dan Markel, as we all should be around the world. This has gotten global attention. We're going to be live. It's not too late. You can sign up on Patreon or YouTube, become members. You can ask Carm anything in exactly 24 minutes. Until then, we will see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8:40 a.m. Tim Jansen and I live from the Tallahassee Leon County Courthouse with closing arguments in the Charlie Adelson trial. Until then, love you, America. Love you, Pennsylvania. Love you, most of all, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel. And I've got to play the close. Here we go.
And we love you, Ruth.
And Ruth and Phil and Shelley.